Good question. So I'm going to assume for the moment that the conjectures I'm proposing turn out to work. If it is true that I get Einstein's special and general theory of relativity from these classes of Markov chains in the limit, then it means we've actually taken first concrete dynamical step outside of spacetime. We actually have a mathematical model that's dynamical outside of spacetime. What the high energy theoretical physicists have found are these positive geometries, which are static entities. There's not a dynamical system there yet. We have a dynamical system. So first thing I want to do is to show that we can maybe get their positive geometries from this. But then this is the first layer of software. If this works, it's the first layer of software we've discovered outside of our headset. And so the analogy I want to give is, suppose you're playing Grand Theft Auto and you're a wizard. You can go faster than anybody and do all the tricks inside the game. That's pretty impressive. But suppose you're the geek who wrote the software. You know the software. You can take the air out of the tires of the wizard. You can give him no gas. You can take his car and move it immediately from one place to another because you wrote the code. You can do things, the code, that inside the game look completely miraculous. And so what's going to happen, I think, is if this works, these conjectures are correct, and we do have the first layer of software outside of spacetime, which definitely gives rise to special and general relativity and quantum. But in quantum theory, I can talk how it arises as well. It does arise in this as well as the asymptotic behavior. The long-term behavior gives us the equations of quantum particles, the wave equations for wave functions of free particles. But if it's correct, then we have the first layer of software outside of the space-time headset. That means that the technologies we should eventually evolve are going to be mind-boggling. For example, one thing that occurs to me is our nearest galaxy, Andromeda, is 2.4 million light years away. Good luck getting there. That 2.4 million light years away. So you have to go really fast for a very, very long time to get there. And if you go really, really fast, like if you're going like a tenth of the speed of light or something like that, if you run into a piece of dust on the way, you're toast. So, I mean, good luck going to our nearest galaxy anytime soon through space-time. If we have the software for the headset and space-time is just a headset, we don't have to go through space-time. We should be able to go around space-time. So we should have technologies that would be real technologies that can move us around space-time. Now, I'm not saying I know how to do that yet. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that opens up.
Well, and plenty of people have, tried to explain anomalous things that they have seen in the sky, which seem to be traveling outside of the rules of observation, not obeying laws of gravity, physics, or the speed of light. This is one of those hand-waving ideas that people say, oh, well, it's operating outside of space and time, and of course it's going to have movement that you can't track because it's operating a different way. That's just hand-waving until you add an actual mathematical concept that explains ways that the space and time that we are operating in to even devise that potential may be limiting in and of itself.
That's right. So it is just a hand wave, and probably most of the observations have other explanations. But if this mathematics is right, it means that there will be a whole class of things that we can do that will look like magic to our current technologies and won't need necessarily to conform to the laws of physics inside our headset, because once you know how to program the headset, you don't have to obey the laws of the headset. You make the laws of the headset and you can change them. So that's what will be fun to do.
Can we just, for a second, play a little brainstorm game that if this software proves to be solid and true, talking about time travel, are we talking about regeneration of the human form? Are we talking about proving consciousness? Can you brainstorm a little bit with us to help people imagine what types of breakthroughs we may be talking about?
Well, in terms of proving consciousness, it would certainly, if a theory that starts with consciousness inside of space-time gives us space-time and starts to give us technologies, it doesn't prove that consciousness is fundamental, but it certainly shifts the burden of proof. Right? Right now, I would say any hard-nosed, intelligent person would have to say between science and spirituality, which one has the most beef? All of my technology is from science. None of my technology is from spirituality. I mean, just the hard-nosed. So it's really clear who has the more credibility. But if a theory that starts with consciousness all of a sudden gives us new technology that you couldn't have from a physicalist framework, then that shifts. That the assumption shifts. And again, I want to be very, very careful. I never want to say that we have the final theory and that we're anywhere close to a theory of everything. I'll explicitly say there is no theory of everything, and Hoffman is 0% of the way toward a theory of everything. Just be very, very clear about that. But I do think we're taking possibly the first baby step outside of space-time with a dynamical theory. The high-energy theoretical physicists are taking the first baby step with their positive geometries. Hopefully, we'll see how those two interact, how they relate. But yeah, I think ultimately then we should be able to do things inside the headset that are indistinguishable from magic right now.
I need a couple examples because I love magic.
Okay.
But we're in the headset. It's not probable now that we could potentially teleport from one city to another, but it may be. But like, can you give us some other examples of some of the things that could be possible?
Well, the way I would answer your question would be myself to think about if I wrote Grand Theft Auto, what could I do that would surprise the players inside Grand Theft Auto? So I could do things like I could all of a sudden you're driving a Ferrari. Oh, now all of a sudden you're driving a Mustang. I could just why couldn't I do that? I should be able to do that, or I should change the paint color on your car. You are driving a red Ferrari, now it's green. Now it's green.
I'm thinking of the Mandela effect, right? The Mandela effect where people supposedly collectively misremember something. Maybe it's just a glitch in the matrix, right? And what it is it's not the Berenstein Bears, it's the Berenstain Bears.
But if I'm trying to think about like things that I could accomplish, my son asked me today, he asked me yesterday, in my lifetime, will I be able to download a language? Because he's trying to learn Portuguese. And I thought, I don't know, he's only 17 now. Maybe this technology allow me to download a language. Could it allow me to regrow a limb? Could it allow me to have communication non-verbally with anyone I choose to communicate with? Just as a starting point.
I see no reason not. Like in the Matrix, right? Neo all of a sudden downloads something, and now I know Kung Fu or something like that, right?
I would like to know Kung Fu.
I don't see, I mean, again, I'm not saying I know how to do it, but I'm saying I don't see a principled obstruction, because if what's outside of the headset is this infinite consciousness. So what I'm saying is ultimately, who are you? You are completely transcendent. You are the infinite consciousness looking through a very, very small headset that only has trillions of experiences. So you've chosen to go from infinity to just a few trillion experiences that you can see yourself through. But you are that infinite consciousness. You are transcendent, and you could then play with these rules. You could play with what you see inside this particular headset.
And on that way of thinking, then all experiences live outside the headset that are waiting for us to access.
That's right. I would say that our current set of experiences is 0% of the available experiences. We're 0%. In fact, in the Markov stuff that I'm doing right now, my conjecture is that the set of matrices that can possibly project into curved space-time is 0% of the Markov matrices. There'll be an infinite number of matrices. This might sound contradictory. There's going to be an infinite number of Markov matrices that can project into our curved space-time world. And there's 0% of the bigger infinity of all Markov matrices, which means I can begin to explore all these other kinds of headsets that might be out there, what they might be like.
And if I'm someone right now who may feel lost, bored, helpless, confused about why I'm here on this planet, how would I start to think about these ideas as it relates to me right now? How could I start integrating the idea that all of these experiences are out there for me if I'm struggling in this moment?
Well, just on a very personal level, then I can mention, just if you want to go on at it scientifically, but on a personal level, I would just say what this theory is saying to me is there is an infinite consciousness that's mind-blowing how complicated and expansive it is. And you are that consciousness looking at itself through a very limited window. You're picking at yourself through a few trillion experiences that we can have as human beings. But ultimately, death is just taking off the headset. That's what death is. You are the infinite, and you've just looked at yourself from this particular avatar for 70, 80, 90 years, whatever it might be. And at some point, you've had enough, and you take the headset off, and you look at yourself through other avatars. So you don't lose your life; you just lose an avatar.
When we speak to people who have had near-death experiences, that's often exactly how they describe it. They say that it is experienced as if they were inside of a video game in this life, and when they pull back, that's all they experience is consciousness that is connected to other consciousness, and that the feeling of love, as we describe it, in human terms, is the closest they can come to describing what it feels like is in charge, right? So that kind of notion of a near-death experience, of kind of like removing the headset, that feels very in line with how you're describing this from a mathematical perspective.
I agree. It does sound very, very similar. I'm a hard-nosed scientist, and so but I'm not closed-minded. So my attitude about all these things is I listen respectfully with a big grain of salt until I have a theory and repeatable experiments that to confirm things. But I do not dismiss them out of hand at all. And I think that so I agree that they're very, very suggestive, that seems to match with this headset kind of point of view. But I guess my only caution is never be dogmatic, and that's including me about my own theory. Dogmatism stops all inquiry. It stops progress. Dogmatism about physicalism being fundamental, dogmatism about my theory being correct. Any dogmatism, we should always be open to people contradicting, offering evidence against us and so forth, but logic against us.